Guys, welcome back to the Beastie Room. We are in the new room today, and we are going to cover today our heated shelves. Now, you would have remembered in the last video we done the routering of the shelves and the painting and what have you. So they've been prepared, they're all ready, and it's now time for us to run our heating elements throughout our shelves. Now, what this will do will give us greater control over each individual shelf. And the idea being that if we can control each individual shelf, we can keep our actual room temperature a little bit lower, which will be a little bit nicer for us while we're working in here and things like that. It also means that we can keep some of our spiders that need to be a bit on the cooler side, they can stay at that lower temperature. So it will give us the flexibility to be able to cover the cool species as well as the warmer species. Now, in regards to the warmer species, I believe in the hobby as a whole, and this is going to be a little bit contentious, but I believe the hobby as a whole, we keep many of our spiders way too cool. They're far too cool. So what we are actually doing is we are just maintaining them. We're not having them thrive like they should be. Now, we've played around with heat for a long time now, at different times with different sort of ways of doing things. And we found our spiders actually appreciate a lot more heat than you would first imagine possible. So we are at that stage now where in the hobby we have the information out there where many people are saying sort of like in the 70s and that for their spiders. I believe this to be way too low. All you regulars would know that my room sits, that's my room temperature, sits at 80 degrees. That's in the standard room. Now in our shelves, when we get up to our higher shelves, some of them can be hitting 90 degrees and our spiders flourish in them. And even at them temperatures, they will come out to try and get more heat. If we move our heater around, we've experimented with this in the past. We've moved our heater from one end to the other. The end that we put the heater, all of our spiders come out and they're on the glass looking for that heat. At the cooler end, they all disappear. So it just goes to show that these spiders are actually seeking out that extra heat, which has often baffled me within the hobby as to why everyone insists on keeping their spiders so cool. And this is down to old information. It is the staple hobby information. And this is something that I would like to hope that we can start to change that. Now, you guys that have followed us from the beginning, we've been now doing these videos for 4 years now, and we only ever show what works for us and what we have found to actually be successful. So much of what we do has been tried and tested for a long time. Now, what we're going to put in here today is our heating cables for our shelves. Now, we've been doing this for many years with reptiles, and we had done it back in the day when we were big into our reptiles. We actually had spiders that were on heated shelves as well, and they done really well. We've not been in that position to do them again in our last room, but now we're in here, we can. So what we're going to do, we are going to put this up and show you just how we are going to control this system. Now, the important thing is, right, we got our heat cable here. Now, there is many different types of heat cable. Now, they're all basically the same thing. What does differ is the wattage on the cables. So I think most of them go down to about 15 watts, and some of them go up to 100 to 150 watts. Now, once you're getting up into these high numbers, these are cables that will produce an awful lot of heat. So we have some here that are designed for reptiles. We have others which I will show you in a moment on the back there, which are designed for plants, and they give off a slightly different heat, and it's a little bit a little bit more subtle. It's a cooler heat, if you like. So when we're in these big numbers, we really need to run them off of a thermostat. Now, we have got a number of different thermostats that we use, but they are all, no matter what the make of them, we tend to go for pulse thermostats. And that is because these guys are running continuously all the time. So they're running all the time, permanently. And what they do is they lower the power outage as they go through. So as the thermostat kicks in, it lowers the power, and it actually affects it in that way. So our heating cable never goes completely off or stays completely on. It's slowly fed all the time. Now, if you use a mat stat, which is quite often what people end up buying, and the reason they buy the mat stat is because when you see this bad boy on the shelf, it might be 60, 70 pound. There'll be a mat stat next to it up there at 30 odd pound, and people look at it and they go, do we need the fancy one? No, we'll go for the cheap one. Well, that's all well and good, but the problem is with mat stats, and again, I really don't get the theory behind this. Mat stats and these thermostats were all designed for reptiles. Now, on a mat stat, what happens is as your mat reaches, or your cable reaches the temperature that you require, it then switches the power off. So it's like you turning the switch off on the wall. You've turned it off because it's reached its power. Now what happens is the whole thing cools down again, drops below where you want it to be, it switches back on and it warms it up, cools it down, warms it up, and it does that its entire life. It is the most archaic system. Yes, thank you. It is the most archaic system, and I cannot for the life of me understand why people, apart from the pricing, why they bother with them. Mat stats, to my way of thinking, just throw them in a bin because they're an absolute waste of time. So,
and you are tight.
And I'm tight, yeah, I am tight. I am always looking for that cheaper option. I'm always trying to save money in everything I do. But with that being said, you will not go wrong with a pulse thermostat. It's the best investment you will make. And your equipment will last a lot longer as well, because it's not being switched on and off, on and off, on and off. So it will look after your equipment and all. Right, so what we need to do, we are going to run this cable through one of our shelves now to show you how it all comes about and what we do and how it works and everything else. And then, so basically the room at the moment is we haven't touched anything. So we are literally going to show you how this is going to get installed and how it's going to work. And then at a later date, we will in turn do these shelves all out properly as the way they should be going. Now, as you can see, we've got our tanks on here. So we've got different tanks here at the moment. There's a small XO there. We've got a normal 5 litre tub. We've got a straight glass enclosure here, and there's a glass enclosure down the bottom there as well. So the idea with these different enclosures will become very apparent in a minute, and I will explain that as we go through. So what we're going to do, we are going to run our cable through. So first off, we get our cable. Now with this heated cable, there is a certain amount of this before. Now normally they have a mark on them, but this one I can't find the mark on it. But normally there will be around about 2 foot or so of this cable that doesn't get warm at all. Doesn't do anything at all. And that is to allow you to be able to plug it into the wall and then run this to wherever it is you want to go. Because obviously the gap between the plug and your vivarium or whatever it is you're going to use, there is a gap there, so there's no need to heat that area. So what they do is they put it so it's so far down. So that is the start of that. So first off, what we need to do is get our pulse thermostat. Now, as you can see here, we've had a bit of a DIY effort here. Now this is our pulse thermostat. We have a plug on the pulse thermostat, which is here. Yeah, so that is where your heater plugs into, which in our case here will be our cable. So we're going to plug our cable into there. That goes into there. Yeah. And then what we do then is we have another one with a plug on it, which is this end. Now what you can see here, at some point or another, this wasn't long enough for me to be able to use it in the area that I was using. So I put one of these junction boxes in. Very simple. It's literally just like wiring a plug in at the end of the day. We can open it up. There you go. So it's literally just a chocolate box, as we call it. That goes in there. And it just protects it from any kind of moisture or whatever, or fingers going in it. We don't want to electrocute ourselves. So I've put an extension on here. So that extension then goes to our wall socket, which we have up here. And we can, pardon? We're doing this show. Yes, we are. So we can plug that in there and we can turn our heater on. Now, as you can see here, our pulse thermostat has lit up. So it's telling us that it's working, it's on, power is on there, so we can see all of that. And what you've got here now is these are the numbers for the temperatures. So we've got 23 degrees equals 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and so on and so on. 27 degrees equals 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah? So we've got centigrade on the outside, Fahrenheit on the inside. Now, we will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Now, what we have here also is a probe. Now, this probe is what will detect the heat from our cable, and it will work out when our cable has reached the desired temperature within our enclosure. So we can put this over here. We'll leave it up here for now. What we will do, eventually, these will be mounted on the side so we can see them. So what we're going to do now, it's a shame you can't feel this, but our cable is lovely and warm. So we'll put that down there. Bearing in mind that all of this will be tidied up when it's put in properly. So what we're going to do now, we are going to run our cable through there, which is the area that we've done through. Yeah, you go that way. So what we do now is we just run this out. Now it's important that when you put this cable in, that it doesn't get crimped or anything like that. So when we routed our shelves out, we literally made it wide enough so that it wouldn't get damaged, it wouldn't get crimped or anything like that. So we can literally go around the end and then we run it back, coming back up the other way. So bearing in mind what we're doing now, this is temporary, just so you get an idea of what we're going to do. When we come down to putting it in properly, this will all be laid down. Alright. So then, so we can run this through here. Now our cable is already getting warm. Take it all the way up, all the way to the end. Now if needs be, we can come back down there. Now then, one thing we should have mentioned, with the heating cables, they come in many different sizes. And I think they go from, literally like about 2 meters, maybe 3 meters, and all the way up, even to some of them, I think some of them go 12 meters or so. You can get absolutely enormous ones. So get one that's going to be suitable for the area that you want to do. Now, as you can see there now, our cable is laying nice and flat inside our shelving unit here, inside our shelf. So what we can do now is this is a really important little device. This is our infrared temperature gun. So what we do, we turn it on, so we just squeeze the trigger, that turns it on, and then that gives us this here. this is our reading. So we can change it from centigrade, got centigrade there, or we can change it to Fahrenheit. Now I tend to work in Fahrenheit. I know a lot of you guys work in centigrade. So what we do, we press the thing, and then you'll see down there, there's a laser on the shelf. We've got that laser. That laser is giving us a temperature. You should be able to get both of them in. There you go. That laser is giving us a temperature of 69.8 degrees on this shelf. So if we put it on the cable, I'll try and hold it on the cable. We've got 71 point, and it's climbing, 70.3 on the actual cable at all, on the cable at the moment. Now, as we've literally only just fired this up, and we haven't yet set our thermostat here. So what we want to do is, you would have remembered when we were talking about these in the past with our thermostats, very few thermostats are absolutely accurate. So what you have here is, this is a printed image on here, and it doesn't really correlate with this switch here. So what we do, we can turn this dial down or up depending on what temperature we're trying to achieve. Now what I would say to you, the most important thing when you're setting up your thermostats is that forget about these numbers. They are a guide. They are not God's law. They literally are a guide. If it says 80 degrees on here, I would be very surprised if it reads 80 degrees on whatever it is you're actually reading. So what we need to do is, we need to get a temperature of an external temperature gauge of our thing, and that's where our gun comes in. These things here are generally pretty accurate. They are really, really good. So we can take a reading of our cable when it's been up and running for a couple of hours. We can take a reading from it, get our reading here. We would then adjust this to match that gun. Yeah? And then that way we will know that our temperatures within our different enclosures will be exactly right. I hope that makes sense, but we need to ignore that dial. That dial is just a guide. Now we've got our probe here as well. So what we need to do is, we can put our thermostat up there somewhere nice where we can get to it and it's visible. And then what we can do then is, we can use our probe. We can either put it on our shelf here and look for a temperature there, so we can sit that underneath an enclosure and we can get a temperature there. That will give us a baseline temperature. So if I move this enclosure here, if I was to put this here and then put that under there like so, we'd have to fix that because that's obviously going to move. If you can see that, really. See that in there? Yeah, see it moving about, can't you?
Yeah.
So we would need to fix that. Put a little staple or something in there just to fix that there. Now the other way we can do it is, we can come in through the top of our enclosure, and we could literally, with the Exoterras, you've got a piece on the back here which you can actually poke it down and it will sit there without you damaging your mesh or anything like that. So it can literally just be like so. So it sits like that. Yeah. So we can put that in there like that. Put that through the corner. And then we can go down. And we can place our probe. Now you can see that there. We can place our probe wherever we want to get our temperature. Now we will have different ways of reading it depending on what spiders we are looking to keep. So if we are going to keep our boreal spiders, if we're going to be looking at keeping our boreal spiders, we want to be looking at getting more of a temperature that's sitting on the top of the soil. That's the temperature reading that we're really requiring there, or a little bit higher. So that air temperature within there is good. If we're going to have a fossorial spider, and I can hear you all now thinking to yourselves, didn't he do a video some time ago about not having heat mats on the bottoms of enclosures? And we did. And this is one of the reasons why we're actually going to be doing this video and some of our other videos as well. Because what we done in those videos was for basic bog standard maintenance. What we're doing now is we're moving up a stage. So if you like, the easy way to teach beginners that are coming in and new to the hobby is to say, don't put it on the bottom, because 9 times out of 10 they cover the whole of the bottom with a heat mat and then they cook their spider. So you have to be very, very careful. We've gone on a little bit now, and we feel now that everyone's ready. They can understand some of the backwards and forwards in with some of this heat. So to give you that example, we got a tub here. This is a 5-litre tub. This has got some soil in the bottom. So if this had a terrestrial spider in it, we can place it here. So if we come around this side, imagine this is our heating cable here. We can place this so that it's literally on that back corner. So the only hot part will be around here. The front half of this enclosure will stay cool. It won't stay that hot. So what we can do is we can adjust the amount of heat that this spider is getting, and also we are safeguarding against this spider getting cooked, because as you know, many heat mats are quite wide, and what was happening was, if you imagine this whole area here had heat cables in it, they would put a tub on it, the spider has got no escape, so it would end up being detrimental to our spider. By doing it this way, we have got heat at the back, nothing for the, well, over 2/3. 80% of this will not be getting any direct heat. So our spider can move and escape into this area if it doesn't want that heat. So we are safeguarding our spider, and it's very, very important that we understand the dynamics of how that works, and also for how it affects different styles of spider. So we have, you know, one of the big things that we see with fossorial spiders, and you often see it in the hobby, people commenting that a fossorial spider will dig down deep to evade the heat. Yeah, this is very true. They will. So if you're out on the plains of Africa and that scorching sun is coming down and it's 40 degrees on the surface of the ground, that spider will dig down and down and down until it finds a cooler temperature where it's happy. We don't suffer that in this scenario. So if we had a fossorial spider, we can still use this tub, we can fill it right up to here, and yes, it's the way that spider is designed. If it feels the heat, it will try and dig away from it. It hasn't got the know-how to work out that our heat is coming from the bottom and not from the top. It's not coming from the sun, it's coming from the bottom. All it knows is the further it digs down, the hotter it's getting. So it will keep trying to avoid, which means it will keep trying to dig down. So what we do is we make sure, like we've shown here, we have at least 80% of this where it has no heat at all. And that spider will just move sideways. He will not dig down in a straight line. You look at any of your fossorial spiders, they dig down, they reach the bottom of their enclosure, they then go sideways because they can't dig through the glass. So they just dig sideways and they just keep going. They just keep going. So our spider will dig down and he will come over here. But what we've given him the option of doing is he can self-regulate his temperature to where he wants to be. And we'll come on to that in a bit more in a minute. Now, if we're going to have, say, an arboreal spider, which is like down in here, this is an arboreal tank here. And And I can't fit it under here, which is a bit of a shame. What I can do, I can show you, just so you can see through the glass, we can use this. This is just as an example to try and highlight what it is we're sort of saying. Because I know there will be the purists out there that will be like, no, 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 no. So what we do now is we put our cable in there, like so, up there, and then what we do is we'll just return it. So this is literally just to show you how the cable is working again. So put that in there like that. That's it. And then we're using these glass tanks because we can see what is going on. So then, this is an arboreal tank. So we can have pokies, avics, whatever we want. And we're going to use the same heat. So what we're doing now, as you can see, we've cut our grooves. In this particular shelf, this shelf is going to hold 30 by 30 by 45 exos. And the size of those exos means that they can sit at the front here and the back will just be on there. So we will end up with around 80% of our enclosure will have no direct heat. But the 20% at the back will have direct heat, which we can control. Now, to make this a bit sensible, you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, but you always have your hide at the back. So if we have our hide at the back like so, as you can see there, it's right over the heat element. So it means that this spider now cannot escape. The only way it can escape that heat is if it moves out and sits out here on the front glass, which we don't really want, do we? Because we want our spider to feel secure. It's all about making our spider feel secure, which is what makes them, you know, do everything that we want them to do. So what we can do is we can either move our bark so that we're on the side like so, and that way it's not on that direct heat there, or we can go half and half. We can do whatever. The other thing we can do is we can give them multiple bark areas to hide, which is what you should be doing anyway. You should be giving your spider plenty of places to choose from. The other thing with an arboreal is we can have it up high like that. So if you imagine a big piece of bark in here, it could be up there like that. Even with this on full blast, the temperature is not going to reach much further than up here somewhere. As it goes up, it will dissipate and it will be cooler and cooler and cooler. Our spider will choose where it wants to go. And that is the beauty of this system. We can control the temperature. Our spider will control where it wants to go. So we're going to, hopefully that makes a bit of sense there. Now the other thing to remember as well is when we're looking at it, if we're putting tubs like this flat on top of the desk, same as this glass tank here, if we put this one down here, these are literally just out to give you an example and show you a little bit about how it works. If you imagine now we're looking at this, our heating cable's here. Our heating cable sits flush with the top of the shelf. Our glass obviously sits absolutely smack bang on it. There is no gap under here. So what that means is that our temperature underneath this glass is going to be higher than the outside temperature. So like the gap here, the temperature inside there is going to be higher than this outside temperature, because here air plays a really, really big part in how these cables work. And if you've got them open to the air, the heat will dissipate all the way up with nothing to restrain it. So it goes really quickly, which means it doesn't get as hot. When we've got glass enclosures on top like this, it is sealed. It's got nowhere to go. So what it will do is it will warm the bottom of that tank like a hot water bowl, and it will warm it up and it will just keep warming it up and warming it up. And then what will happen is that will then in turn permeate, that warmth will permeate through the soil, and eventually it'll get to a point in the soil where it's cold because it's not hot enough to actually cook it. It's literally just giving that gradient of heat. So again, when we're like this, we have to be more aware that this is going to get warmer or hotter than this enclosure here, because this one has got a gap underneath. You know, if you've got small fingers, I mean, I can almost get my little finger under there. So we have got a gap right under there, as you can see it. It's a very visible gap. So again, we are looking, and this is where this is one of the things that we wanted to try and highlight, that everything is not entirely black and white. And this is where it's very, very difficult when we're trying to educate people into the things that we are doing, because it is not black and white. You can sit there and turn around and say, you know, well, it's just a cable running through the thing, or it's just a heat mat, whatever. But different style tanks give different energies to that heat, and they make the difference in what is going on. So it's very, very important that you think a little bit outside the box. You think that anything that is flat to the cable is going to generate more heat. Anything with a gap under it is going to take a lot longer to warm it up. So we need to be aware of it. Same as these. This will get warm, and this is why we end up using the pulse thermostat to regulate the heat. So before we put live animals in any of these, we need to get our gun out, and we need to be able to register our enclosures and find out what the temperatures are sitting at. Now in here we've got multiple shelves, so we're going to make life a lot easier for ourselves here, because what we will do is on this shelf, this will be all one style of enclosure, and for argument's sake this shelf will be all 20 by 30 exoterras. Yeah, so they've all got a gap underneath. So we know now that we can probably have our cable whacked up a little bit. We can turn that heat up a little bit on the thermostat, because we want to generate more heat because there's that gap. Now, so these are going to be our boreal enclosures here. And then basically, because they're arboreal, we know that our spider is going to live up on the back. He's going to be anywhere, you know, from a foot above where the heat source is. So we need to be able to measure them temperatures, the air temperature within that, before we start putting any livestock in. And once we've got them, we're sorted. And then what we can do then is, you might be sitting there saying, well, you're not very flexible because your thermostat can only run one temperature. And that is very true. But what we're going to do here is that one temperature is all we need, because all we're going to do is keep that one style of thing going, and then the spiders that fit that will be the spiders that can adjust to that kind of environment. So it will suit that particular species of spider. Yeah. And then as we move up, we might, for argument's sake, up here we might have some more fossorial style spiders and things like that. As long as they can get away from that heat source and get to a cold point, they can thermoregulate what they're doing. Now, this brings me now to that old chestnut of a piece of information that this hobby has been sacrificed to for the past 30-40 years. This business about, if I'm comfortable in my t-shirt, my spider's comfortable. Well, what an absolute crock of codswallop that is. Our spiders are cold-blooded, yeah? And by cold-blooded, this means that they need to warm up in which to actually... externally. Yeah, they need to warm up externally. So, as do reptiles. And as most of you guys, you know, have got reptiles, you will understand that reptiles, they come out in the morning, the sun is warming up the ground, As the day goes on, the sun gets hotter, our reptile, our snake, our lizard, our spider will come out. They will warm up because the sun is cooking the earth. It's warming up that surrounding floor. Our spider is absorbing that heat. And that is what turns our spider, basically turns his dynamo on, if you like. And he now can run around, catch food, do all the things that a spider does. He can do everything. If he's left cold, he can't do half of it. And what he can do, he can only do slowly, you know? Which is why we often see in the hobby, people go on about brachypelmas. You know, why does my brachypelma only ever molt once every 2 years? You know, it only ever feeds once every 6 months. My argument to that would be that they are far too cold. Sitting them at 70 degrees constantly all year round is, well, that's like you coming home from work, you know, on a winter's day and not having the heating on. It's damn cold. It's not comfortable to sit at home in your living room in a cold space. So we turn the heating up and that warms us up, makes us feel better, makes us active. It's exactly the same for our spider. So they are, for my opinion, they are being kept far too cold. And this is where this system here will make the difference. We can keep our brackies up at a much, much warmer environment. And I guarantee you, we will get much faster molts. We will have spiders that feed regularly. We will have spiders that don't go into pre-molt for 6, 8, 10 months at a time because they are actually working the way they should be working. We are keeping them far too cold. And this is why everything takes so long for many of these spiders to actually achieve anything. So by doing this, we can keep them, actually look after our spiders and keep them in their optimum way. They won't just be surviving, these spiders will be thriving. And we will show you this through the year, and you will see, you know, the results of this, and it will show why our spiders need more heat in the hobby. Now, I know many of you are sort of sitting there going, well, I haven't got a room. I've only got 1 or 2 spiders. That's not a problem. We have ways of keeping them spiders warmer. We just need to do it. You know, just because you have 1 spider doesn't mean you should keep him cold. You know, we don't have a rule where if we've got 10 or more spiders, we'll invest in heat. No, we should invest in heat with the very first spider we get. And that spider will then flourish, which if it flourishes means we end up with happy keepers because our spiders aren't keeling over for whatever reasons. We are looking after them properly. So we will run these enclosures and the main point of this is so that our spider can thermoregulate its own system. It can warm itself up, cool itself down, do what it wants to do, which will give us a perfectly healthy spider. Right, I think, have we covered pretty much?
It's going to be an unfolding thing. I think
yeah.
the video's not going to cover it.
Yeah, this is basically the basics of what we are going to be doing and how and what we are trying to achieve. And like I said, we've been doing this for, you know, on and off for a long time. So we know it works. It's just now it's been nice. This is a good opportunity to highlight this. And hopefully we can change some of the things that are, you know, that are set. They're like set like stone in the hobby. And I do honestly believe that much of what we do in the hobby is very, very outdated now. And it's just plain wrong. You know, we should be aspiring to creating a better environment for these animals. You know, and there is no reason why we can't. We have the technology now, we have the equipment, and no doubt in another 5 or 10 years' time, what we're doing here will be so outdated, it won't be worth anything, you know, because we would have ended up with better stuff, which gives us a better environment for our spiders, which is fine, because that's the way we should be looking. We should be looking at getting better all the time and improving all the time. You know, this is something that's bugged me for a long, long time, and it's not really been broached. And one of the reasons that a lot of this sort of stuff does not get mentioned, that a lot of people that have YouTube channels or other ways of social media, is the backlash, because the hobby is very, very quick to defend its old style of doing things. And that's what we need to try and put to rest. We need to try and change that thinking and make the differences now. We are in a position to make these differences. So as you see this room develop, you will see us changing our heating as our tanks go in. Our theraphosis, you will know that I've kept most of mine quite cool. We are going to try some of them and keep them warmer and experiment with them and see how they go. We've already experimented with them in terms of humidity. We've kept some of them almost bone dry and others we've kept really, really wet. And we've not had any differences in our molting, our feeding and things like that. It's all been pretty much the same. So these are all questions that are nice to sort of like throw out there and try and answer. So we will keep all our theraphosa are going to go up on this, or most of them are going to go up on here. This cable here, this is the green cable, and this is a cable that is used for putting in for plant trays, for seedling trays, and this runs at about 15 watts. So with this one, you know, it's a very, very sort of easy heat. It's quite a subtle heat, and it does really, really well. The other thing to remember is I'm right on these lights, aren't I? Is that what you're going on about? Right, I shall move over here. So what we can, another thing to remember, as we said in the beginning, I am a bit tight, and you'll find that the horticultural supplies for heating cables are far, far cheaper than your reptile supplies. And it's all down to packaging. They all pretty much do exactly the same thing. So, you know, look online. All this stuff is online. It's all there. Amazon, best place in the world. Right. So I think we have covered everything on what we're doing. And then as we go along and we start bringing our enclosures in, we'll start to see the benefits of some of this. Right. Well, I think that is about as much as we need to do. Now, we did actually say about the fossorial and the terrestrial spiders. I better just mention this quickly because I've just seen me bit of bark. These, when our cable is running through like that, our warm area is on the back point there. Yeah, we can leave a hide on the warm area like so, but then we also need to leave a hide somewhere in the enclosure, whether it's up the other end or wherever, but we need one in the cool as well. So our spider has a choice to hide away both in the warm area and a cool area. Always give your spider multiple points in which to thermoregulate itself. That is the key. It needs to be able to have a choice in where it goes and where it feels secure. That is most important. Right. Well, I hope that it went on a little bit, and I hope you enjoyed it, and it's opened up some thoughts. You know, this is what I want this sort of video to do. I want you to sit there and ask the questions to yourself. You know, what you can do to make your spider keeping better. And you know, when you watch this, fire in the comments. If you've got any questions and things like that, put them in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget, hit the like button, very important. But put your comments down, and I will do my best to get back to you and answer them. And hopefully we can, as a whole group, we can change the way our spider keeping is done today. Right then, well, I hope you enjoyed that. And don't forget, be calm, be gentle, and love your spider. And I'll see you soon, guys.